Hi everybody, welcome back. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be doing a preseason video. So we're going to be talking about just a really quick Season 8 review, sort of what went on, what worked well, what didn't work well in the last season or so, and then we're going to talk about what is the preseason, how should you approach it, and then we'll talk about current problems in League, and then what's changing in the preseason, and how it might be addressing some of those problems or not. And then if we have a little bit of time left at the end, we'll talk about the current PBE and sort of what are some of the changes that they're going to implement on 8/23, which should arrive either next Tuesday or the Tuesday after that. The timing is a little ambiguous. We're not sure, but anyways, that's what we're going to go through. So special thanks to Sammy very much for donating for this generous guide, and I'm going to try to be much more frequent with my guides. I'm going to see if I can come up with one every 2 or 3 days probably to post up on the channel. I know people love guides. I know I've got a backlog of guides I still need to do. So yeah, that's how it's going to be. You can find timestamps in the description if you want to jump around to your favorite parts. You don't have time to watch the whole thing. And don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit that bell button if you're interested in this kind of content. That way I know I should make more of it. And it will help other people out there that are maybe looking for this kind of, really thoughtful content, not just clickbait. It'll help them find the channel. So be sure to do that. Okay, so Season 8 review. So overall, I think Season 8 was pretty successful in my mind. Personally, I think it was successful. Now, did I get as high of a rank as I would have liked? No. But I think a lot of that was my own play. I think there are ways that I could have optimized. But let's just go over a couple of the major changes and things that happened in Season 8 and why I think they're overall a good idea. Okay, so number one is the new Rune System. I think this is a great idea. The reason for it primarily is because it gives better access to new players. That's a theme we'll talk about here in a little bit. League desperately needs something to attract and retain new players and not just the old guard. Because a lot of the old guard are just, they're either seasonal players or they've moved on to other games. They'll play at the beginning of the season, maybe the end, maybe they'll dip their toe back in, but I mean, League is an old game. It is still a great game. I think it changes its personality a little bit every season, so I think it's fresh, to play, but there are a lot of people that kind of step out, and that's okay. The problem is there's not people stepping in as much. I think that League is still a highly successful game. It's still almost always the number 1 or number 2 streamed game. And so I think that overall it's great, but attracting new people and retaining new people is a big thing that they need to work on. Now, the runes were a terrible burden for new players to have to get. Now, I've been playing since Season 1, and so I can tell you, I bought 20 rune pages, and I bought all the runes that I needed, and by today's standards, it would have probably been like 20 rune pages themselves would have been 120,000 blue essence, and then all the runes for it probably would have been at least 30,000. So you're looking at 150,000 blue essence, which could have been, something like 6,300 blue essence champions back in the day. So it's like you had to have 25 less champions just to get your rune pages, just so you could function. And you didn't need 20 to function. You probably could have functioned on like 3 to 5 if you only played like one role, maybe. But to have the most options, you needed 20. And so so changing that saves people a lot. It lets them invest in other things they're more interested in other than runes. Also, it does add more personality. I know that's kind of like a meme where people say, oh, but everyone always picks this one rune in every situation. And it's like, yeah, but there's still more variety in that than there was in the standard. Every single AD carry is going to run these runes, right? They're going to run the AD reds, the armor yellows, the magic resist blues, or the attack speed blues, I guess, if you want to get fancy. And then usually the AD quints from the old system. It's like every single person would run that. Whereas now, you've got some choices some places. I mean, you look at someone like Kaisa, you have press the attack or fleet footwork or a couple of options. With Lucian, you've got press the attack. With Draven, you've got Conquer. With Ezreal, you've got the Kleptomancy. With Misfortune, she was taking Dark Harvest. So there are a lot of different varieties. Now, yes, will the same champion get the same rune a lot of the time? Yes, but that's still different from other champions and highlights the strengths of that champion versus others. And so there are some champions like Kaisa who have a couple of different runes they can go, or like Rakan, who could go Airy or Guardian or Unsealed Spellbook in different circumstances. But, most champions will go for the most optimal rune on them. But that still gives more variety, more flavor, more personality to each of those champions, rather than every single AD carry across the board is going to get the same runes, right? Which is pretty much how it was back in the old system. So is it perfect? Could there be more variety and versatility? Yeah, of course there could be, but at the same time, it's better than it was. So I think it's a step in the right direction. And you have to remember, people are almost always going to flock towards the most optimal build a lot of times. And certain champions are just going to have a most optimal rune to start with. You're like, this champion does these things, it has these abilities, this rune's probably going to be the best on that champion. So once again, there are some options out there, right? You had GP with Kleptomancy versus GP with Grasp, but by and large, I don't think it's a failing because every champion can't use like 5 or 10 different runes. There's just no way that would work. Like, the only time that would work is if people don't understand the champion and how it works and the items you're going to get. And like its role in winning the game, right? That just demonstrates confusion. Or overly homogenous runes that don't make much of a difference. But anytime there's very distinct runes, then you're going to, like, a certain champion is going to have a very small selection of runes to choose from because that small selection will be most optimal on them. So anyways, I think it was overall a good system. I know some people have complained, but it puts too much power in the game and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I really don't think so. Not that much. I don't think that's one of the core problems. We'll talk about one of the core problems with power here in a second, but I don't think the runes are it. I like it. I think it's refreshing. Could they add in more runes? Could they balance a couple of them out? Yeah, sure, but I think by and large they've got some pretty good options out there. So I think that was a win. The assassin balance has been very poor, I think, since about 8.8. So that is one thing that I think a lot of people might kind of harp on, and this is something that I have, that I tend to agree with. So I think that tanks need to be viable again. The problem with assassins, and this is a mentality which we'll talk about here in just a second with current problems at the league, was people were, like, one of the main narratives that people were crying about, and there were a lot of content creators crying about, it's not a solo carryable game. All these content creators are like, if you have a bad person on your team, then, they could lose you the game. That's the nature of random teams, right? Sometimes you're going to have bad people on your team. We'll talk about why is that, from like autofill to different kinds of meta considerations, mostly autofill. But that's how it should be. Think about this, right? If your whole team, and this is what's happening with the assassin meta, let's say that your whole team is doing very well, and like one person on their team is doing well, right? So there's like, the Irelia is 10-0, and, everyone else on their team is doing terribly. Maybe your team has 10 kills also, but their team has 10 kills on this one assassin. They're all performing horribly, but they win the game because the Irelia is super fed and just feasts, off of your team. There's not much you can do. That Irelia just solo carried the game. Is that what people really want? Do you want to feel like, hey, I played a good game? 3 or 4 of my teammates played a good game also, but we still lost to this champion who solo carried because she's so strong? No, you don't want that. And so, like, that's what people don't understand, is it's like, you should lose the game. If your teammates do poorly, you should lose. That's how it goes. You have 2 or 3 people on your team that are just really feeding and terrible at, in this current game. Yes, you should lose. Like, that should actually be what happens. Versus, no, I should be able to solo carry my way out of it, because that leads to toxic gameplay. Because then it leads to people feeling like they played well, but they still lost. Because there's always someone on the other end, right? There's 2 teams. If one person is solo carrying all of their terrible teammates, that means that they are overperforming everyone on the enemy team. That should not be a standard thing. That should be if someone is smurfing or boosting or, doing something else nefarious. It shouldn't be in a standard, like, fairly matched game of League of Legends. That shouldn't happen, right? Because that invalidates the efforts and the experience of everyone else in the game, right? So there's 2 sides to that coin. If it's a solo carry, that means it's probably imbalanced, and that means the other team is going to feel really, really bad because they overperformed most of your team, but you were playing a champion that was strong enough to, overcome all of your weak teammates. And that sounds good if you're the person carrying, but most of the time, if it's not you, it's really bad. So this is Assassin. So most of the champions that are, guilty of this throughout a lot of the season have been these assassin type of champions that can just hard carry everything, right? You've got like your Talon, your LeBlanc, all that. Right now it's Irelia and Jax who are a little bit different. But it's the same kind of problem. And I think assassins in general create a very degenerate sort of experience because there's, like, when they're very strong, there's little counterplay to them. So what I mean is, like, you know, the 3-0 Talon pops over a wall and you are Soraka. What's the counterplay? Nothing. You're dead. Right? Most of the time. And that's how it is with a lot of champions, particularly supports. Unless you're playing, like, a super heavy tank support. Even then, it's going to be tough. But they just snowball too hard, and the argument is, it's like, well, if you shut them down early, but they can prey on the weakest people on your team and get really fed. Another solution is you can have actual tanks that have CC that are viable and put them on a clock. So you can say, okay, you can be really strong in the mid game, right? So maybe you get fed early, maybe you get 3 kills in your Talon early, right? And then you're on the clock. You have to say, all right, I have to finish this game out because if, you know, this Malachi jungle or this Sejuani jungle gets to, you know, 3 armor items or whatever, I'm not going to be able to win. Because they're going to have too much armor, too much CC, too much peel. And I think that's a fair assassin gameplay, right? You get ahead early, no one can stop you, you know, for 10 or 15 minutes. But if you don't close out, if you troll around and just hunt down kills and don't get objectives, you're going to pay for it later, right? Because the enemy's going to have 1 or 2 tanks on their team, and they're going to be able to lock you down and deal with you later on. But right now, that's not what happens, because tanks just really, it's very difficult to find viability for tanks because they've nerfed them so hard. There are no more Sejuanis, Orns, still some Scions, but I think there need to be more tank options. I think they need to buff some of the tank items a little bit, particularly in the jungle, just to kind of put the assassins on the clock, because right now, if you get fed early, yes, you're strong in the mid game, but often people can't catch up to you in the late game either because nobody's playing tanks. So it's like nobody's going to have any resistances to you later on, with the exception of maybe like a tank support, maybe like an Alistar or something, but by and large, it just creates a very degenerate experience. Because like if a fight goes on for 20 seconds or so, you know, if there are a couple of tanks fighting and then you've got your backline AD carry hammering away at people, you've got your control mage casting some spells, you know, doing some burst damage and trying to add some utility to the fight, that's a healthy fight, I think. You have plenty of options. You know, you could have targeted someone else with your skill. You could have used your cooldown at a different time. You could have, you know, peeled your AD carry a little bit more. You know, there's just all kinds of things. If you go back and watch, you know, the replay of that, you could say, okay, I could have done this differently. This was an interesting fight, right? Everyone could have done something interesting. Versus, you know, if you're playing against the 8-0 Irelia, it's just, all right, well, they just steamrolled everybody. I used the abilities to the best of my capacity looking at the replay, so did my team, and we still lost, right? It's just strictly, does she get to this threshold or she's unstoppable or not, right? And so that's what feels bad. Like, or if someone gets deleted, you know, fight starts, someone gets CC'd, and gets blown up in, like, less than 1 second, which is what happens a lot of the time. You know, someone gets hit with, like, I don't even know, like a Kane knockup or something. Just something really simple like that. He's red Kane, he knocks you up, boom, dead, pretty much a lot of the time. And that just, I don't know, people should be punished for getting caught, but that happens so much, and it just feels like fights are just won and lost in, like, 5 seconds or less. Like, there just aren't these really strong team fights anymore. So I think the assassin meta encourages people to, you know, split up and not team fight. And there just isn't enough punishment for assassins if they goof around and don't close out games. If they get ahead, they can make so many mistakes and still win the game. And I think that's something that has been a problem. So everyone was crying about the tank meta, you know, for the first 8 patches, but I thought the first 8 patches were pretty good competitive patches. But that brings us into some more problems here. Okay, so the mid-season ADC nerfs and the funnel comp. And I don't want this video to take too long. It looks like it's already going to be pretty long. But I did want to talk about these things a couple of times, then just go into the preseason. But we'll blow through this a little bit faster here. The ADC nerfs plus the funnel comps, everyone knows this is one of the greatest disasters, I think, in League of Legends history. In terms of PR, like public relations, absolutely awful. Riot did a terrible job. They're starting to act like Blizzard. when they did this. But Riot did a terrible job here where they did not communicate sort of what was going on. And this all looked like an accident, right? That AD carries were all of a sudden completely terrible, and you were seeing mages in the bot lane, then you saw the funnel comp in the mid lane, you see like your, what were people even running? It was like Taric, was it Taric Yi? It was something like that. It was like Taric Yi or Rakan, Xayah, or Kaisa, Braum, or, you know, they're just running all sorts of these like mid lane supports with a funneling jungler, with, you know, like a mage bot lane. Like, it was just all... And I thought it was a very interesting time in League of Legends. Personally, I thought it was cool. I thought it was refreshing to see all this different stuff. To try to solve it, to think of what are all these different combinations. But that just goes to show you also, you know, people were always saying, oh, I want to see more variety. I want to see, you know, why is it the same champions all the time here and there? Well, this was your variety. Riot tried it out, and everyone just about, like, they grabbed their pitchforks and torches, right? That was, like, maximum freedom, where you could play your meta, or you could play anything you wanted just about, and it could be viable in those lanes. Not to that extreme, but there were so many more viable options in that meta than there are in a standard AD carry meta. In a standard AD carry meta, there's going to be like 3 AD carries that are better than all the rest of them, and that's it most of the time. But anyways, it was extremely poorly received. It was what I thought of was one of the largest exoduses from the game ever. I know viewership on my channel dropped a ton right there, and that could be for different reasons. It could have been with like YouTube's algorithms. It can be competition from Fortnite. You know, it could have been a lot of mitigating factors in there, but it certainly felt like there were a lot less people watching my channel. There were a lot less people watching League. Anecdotally, you know, a lot of popular streamers kind of left around that time and went to other games. So it was, and everyone was making all these like hate videos about it. I think it's difficult to find something that was less well received than that. I mean, even the season 6, like forcing everyone to play flex queue, I think was better received than this. And I think a lot of it was they just did not explain it very well. They had terrible PR. They let all the haters control the narrative. And like I said, I thought it was cool. And I think if they just balanced it a little bit better, or maybe explained it a little bit better, that could have been good. But that was really a disaster. However, I think they have recovered a little bit. There are still a lot of problems in terms of balancing in the game, but I think they've got it back to a reasonable state now. And I think most people would say this was the best Worlds ever. There was a lot of diversity, there was a lot of hype, there was a lot of competition. Yeah, the semis and the finals were sweeps all around, so that was a little anticlimactic, but like the group stages and the quarterfinals were amazing. I mean, there were so many 5-game series that were very close. Korea didn't even make the semis, which was insane. You know, North America did very well. The meta evolved tremendously. If you look within the game itself, they were all on the same patch, don't forget. And we went from things like, you know, Scion top, to things like Aatrox top, to things like Victor top, you know, to Hecarim top. Like, it was such an evolving meta of all these different champs. Now, yes, there were, you know, things like Akali, Irelia, and Aatrox were overpowered, you know, the whole time. But at the same time, people were finding different solutions. These things, Sivir rose up as something that was very popular at the time as a potential, you know, counter to some of the other popular AD carries. Kaisa was super hot early and then fell off later. So I thought it was really cool. And I thought they did some really awesome marketing with the KDA song and skins. I think that's their best marketing campaign they've ever done. So they're really getting back on the wagon with the PR. That was a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of people that are going to watch that and maybe that don't even play League of Legends that think that looks cool and they might, you know, check it out. So I thought that was really good. So I think that is good. I think they're, you know, getting on the right track. They had a disaster in the midseason with the AD carry changes. The assassin meta has, you know, dragged out a little too long. But I think they're going to address some of this in the preseason, which we'll talk about. But yeah, overall, I think it was a successful season. I think that, like I said, the midseason is what will probably stick in most people's minds, and that was bad. So I'd put it as like maybe an average-ish season. I think season 7 was probably worse. But keep in mind, too, you know, one of the conversations when this stuff happened in the midseason was, well, the game changes too fast, and they were making all these changes, you know, for the first 11 patches to the meta, and I like that. I thought that was cool. But everyone was crying about that. It's like, well, do y'all remember Ardent Censor? Can I remind you of that from Season 7, right? From like April to the end of the season, it was what people were calling an Ardent Sensor meta, where it was like Janna, Lulu, and then 80 carries were just supremely powerful the whole time. And people complained about that a lot. So I think people have really short memories when it comes to what they want. But anyways, I thought it was still a pretty good season overall. I think that Season 7 was better. I think this was better than Season 6 probably. Either way, I think it's fine. It's hard to compare seasons because there's just so many changes all the time. But I think it's fine. So what's going on with the preseason here, now that I've talked like a recap of Season 8? First of all, what is the preseason? How does it work? Okay, so it goes from... It says November the 12th. It's really whenever the preseason patch comes out, which could be this Wednesday at the earliest, so the 21st. Or it could be after Thanksgiving, which would be the 28th next week. Because Thanksgiving in the United States is a major holiday on the 22nd. So lots of Riot employees are probably going to be out of town, these 3 days. So they haven't said if they're releasing it this Wednesday. I'm assuming they're not. So I think it'll probably come out on the 28th. But we'll see. So that's what preseason is. Ranked still counts during the preseason. You still have a rating. You still have a ranking. The only thing that changes is that you're not eligible for the Season 8 rewards anymore. That's it. And around January 23rd, then your rank will soft reset, but that reset is based on your rank at the very end of the preseason, not November 12th, at the very end of the preseason. So if you ended November 12th at Gold 5, but you goof around in the preseason and you fall down to like Silver 3, you will be placed as though you're Silver 3. Okay? So keep that in mind. So you can try out some different stuff and have some fun in the preseason if you want, but keep in mind that your rating matters, and if you fall too much, that's your fault, not Riot's fault. And so if you get placed lower than you think you should be placed, then don't goof around. If you don't want to be placed lower, then don't goof around. Conversely, you could go from Gold 5 up to Platinum 5 while everyone else is goofing around, and you're going to get placed as though you're Platinum 5. So you might actually go start off in Gold rather than starting off in Silver this season. So if you're a competitive person, I mean, this is a good chance to sort of sneak up on people and get a lot of rating while everyone else is not taking it seriously. And then you get a much, much more favorable start at the beginning of next season. So just keep in mind that it does matter. Okay. Now there's a formula to this. You play like 10... placement games, but that is based on it's a combination of the placement games combined with what your final season rank was, and that determines where you're going to end up. So if you ended up Gold 5 and you go 5 and 5 in your placements, you might end up at like Silver 4 where you start, versus if you're Platinum 5 and you go 5 and 5, you might end up in Gold 4. So they don't give you the exact formula, and some of it depends on the strength of your opponent. So if you lose your first 3 games in a row in your placement, you're going to be playing against weaker opponents, which means you're going to be dropped into lower games. It's kind of like a computer adaptive test, if you've ever had one of those, like a GRE, graduate records exam in the United States, and some other stuff like that. Basically, it's, if you lose your early games, that counts a lot more than if you lose your later games. So if you lose your first 3 games and win your next 7, then you're going to be at a lower rank than if you won your first 7 and lose your last 3, because your last 3 are going to be lost to higher level opponents. So you're going to get placed higher. So it's kind of goofy. They don't tell you the exact formula, and it would be difficult to predict it because it depends on which order you lose the games in. But overall, that's how it works. So care about your games, try to win. Don't throw, don't rage, play them just like normal ranked games. Okay. And then some people might think, well, why the preseason? The main a couple of reasons. Number one, they usually try out like really sort of game defining things, like stuff that's going to make the game very different. They do a lot of the changes in the preseason, and they don't have it count towards the Season 9 ranked yet while people get used to it. Also, they know that a lot of Riot employees are going to be traveling. A lot of pro players aren't going to be playing They're going to be taking that time off or practicing a lot. So it's just kind of awkward. Now, I think this is potentially a pretty bad idea, just because it's the holiday season in the United States. Between November and Christmas is a really, really big selling season. So the fact that you want people, or you're calling it a preseason and you're encouraging people not to take the game as seriously at that point, seems like really a lost opportunity for sales to me. I feel like they should have their seasons based around the summertime. I don't know. Summertime, people are off school. In the winter, they're off school too, though. I think they should do the preseason in June or something, honestly, because that's league's weakest time right now. There aren't any major holidays in June. There's July 4th, but there aren't a lot of major holidays in June, and it's a very low sales season historically anyways. So I don't know how they would restructure to do that, but basically when they do their midseason now, I would just swap it. I don't know. They're too deep. I don't think they could switch it now. I mean, a lot of it is the players want to be with their families, and the the Riot employees want to take time off and go on vacation, be with their family and things like that. So I get it. I just think that they're potentially losing a lot of money by doing that, but whatever. If they're fine with it, that's cool. So care about the preseason. They do a lot of changes, but they still matter. It will add up for Season 9. So let's talk just really quickly about what are some of the major changes with League, and the three biggest things I think are three of the biggest things. Then we'll talk about what they're doing in Season 9 and whether this addresses sort of what's going on here. Okay, so number one problem is it's terrible for new players. That's the biggest thing. And you want new players to play the game. It keeps the game fresh. When people are, maybe taking a break or leaving and doing other things, you want new players to step up and take over that mantle. So you want new players in your game. It's all good to attract, kind of the veteran players, the grizzled veterans, and to keep them happy, but at the same time, you also want it to be a good experience for new players. And I think right now it's not. So leveling 1 to 30 feels terrible. Just nobody's going to want to do that. People will buy accounts, or it just takes too long. Why should you have to play 30 to 40 hours? I mean, it takes forever. 30 to 40 hours, because you're not getting anything, really, right? You don't have a talent tree or anything that you're leveling up. You're not doing any sort of quests. It's not a dynamic content experience. It's not something like World of Warcraft, right? Where you start off level 1 and you go through and you're unlocking these different quest chains, and you are, learning more about the story. You're learning, your abilities in different situations. A lot of it, you're just playing League of Legends, You just go in, you're playing 5v5, and that's it. You're playing 5v5, but you have, you don't get access to certain summoner spells. But there's nothing, cool or, unique about getting Ignite. At level 12 or whatever, you just press Ignite on somebody and it does damage. There's not a lot of skill cap, in those things. And so, it doesn't make sense to do that with something like this that doesn't have a dynamic experience where you're learning stuff, you're unlocking the game more, you're getting people invested in the game. Right, with World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy or whatever, when you're leveling up, you're doing quests, you're getting invested in the game, you're learning about the lore, you're traveling around the world, you're seeing all these different, sites and events and trying to get immersed in the game. It's immersion breaking actively to do this in League of Legends because you're going to run into a lot of Smurfs, a lot of people that were banned for bad behavior, and a lot of robots, basically. They're just leveling, programs, they're just leveling accounts. And so it's just terrible. The reasoning why they might do this is maybe they want people to have experience in the game before they can go to ranked. I agree with that. So let's just do that. Let's just take away the leveling system and just say, okay, you have to play 30 match-made normal games against other people before you can play ranked. Simple. Okay, and then that way it doesn't take 40 hours to do it. You can do it in maybe 15 hours. And you're actually playing the real game. You're not playing against bots. You're not playing against all of these, Smurfs, You're playing with the normal population of players, right? That are in there. And you're getting access to Blue Essence. You're getting real experience in the game. I mean, you can keep beginner bots and intermediate bots. For people that are new, they can opt into that. But I don't think they should be forced to do that to level up. Just make them play some amount of games. I don't know, maybe 30 is too many, maybe 20. But just make them play match-made games. That would achieve the same purpose. Now, if they're also saying something like, well, we want this leveling to be punishment for people that get banned, or for people that are making Smurfs, we don't want to encourage Smurfs. If everyone started at level 30, then, you know, whatever. It's like, okay, but just find some other way. Like, don't punish new people because there are people that misbehave. Ban people faster, or something like that, for example. You know, if you had less requirements like this, then you could feel more comfortable banning people faster who are out of line. And as far as, like, Smurfs go, Smurfs are going to do their thing. And here's the thing. These people are going to buy accounts, right? Like, I'm not saying that people should ever do this, but let me show you something here real quick. You can find sites. Okay? You can find sites. Now, I'm not going to, like, find them here or whatever, but people like this buy Legends accounts. You can buy a level 30 account for probably, like, $30 or something. Right? I don't know the exact numbers or whatever, but there are sites that are like this, unranked Smurfs. I'm not going to click on them because, you know, they might be viruses or something. But you can buy things like that. Okay? Here's the thing. New people aren't going to know about that stuff. And, you know, they don't want to pay $30 to have to do that, right? But Smurfs will do that. People that have terrible attitudes will do that. They'll just say, okay, I don't care. I'm just going to pay $30, get my unranked account, and skip this 40 hours worth of grind to get to level 30. So it's not punishing them. It's, you know, it's basically charging them $30, which Riot doesn't even get any of that money. It's actually actively supporting people who do bad things. It's supporting these people that run these programs, right? These people that just create these programs to just run in and fight the intermediate bots over and over again. So bots to fight the bots, pretty much. And then they're getting paid for that. They just have these programs and they're getting paid for it. And that's creating terrible user experiences. Because, like, actual new people are going to go into this and they'll say, oh, wow, hey, man, what do you think about this? And then nobody says anything back, and you figure out, oh, the whole thing is just programs and robots, you know, leveling up accounts that they can sell. And so the people who lose in this transaction are the new players, right? So just get rid of it. It's toxic. Just don't make people go level 1 to 30. Just let them play normals, 30 normals, and that would be so much better for the new player experience, just to get in there. You can't play with your friends either. That's another thing, is how do most people learn about League of Legends? Why do they start playing? A friend plays it, right? They're at school, their buddy's playing it, they're talking about it at lunch, or maybe there's some kind of, like, you know, esports club or something, or just something like that. They hear about it from their friend, they want to go play. It's like, okay, man, let's go play. You can show me how to play. It's like, no, I can't. Not unless I want to go make a level 1 account and play with you, which sucks. Because then I'm going to have to spend 40 hours playing with my friend. Or, you know, there's just so many bad options. Like, just get rid of it. So I think that's the biggest thing. And I think that a player should, sort of building on this, I think a player should have to play 10 games in normals. Maybe not that exact number, but something like that. They should have to play some number of games in normals before they can play a champion in ranked. I don't think you should be able to first time a champion ranked if you haven't played it in normal. Maybe 5 games. I don't know what the number is. But I don't think when a new champion comes out, you should be able to spam it and ruin a bunch of ranked games. Or if it's like, hey, I just feel like going first time Diana bot lane or something like that. You shouldn't be able to do that. It should have to be some number of games. Like maybe at least 5. Maybe 10's a little harsh. But maybe like 5 games. 5 normal games before you play it in ranked. Just so you can at least get a feel for how it works. And then once you complete your 30 games, or as you go through, maybe every 6 games that you play, something like that, you get a free champion of your choice. No shards. You can still have the shard system, but it's too random. You know, what if my personality, I want to play something stealthy? What if I want to play Shaco, or I want to play Eve? I I want to play Twitch. Something like that. Maybe that's just my personality. Maybe I played a rogue or something in World of Warcraft or whatever, and then I heard about League from my buddy. I want to come over. I say, hey, Shaco looks really cool. It's an assassin, kind of roguelike character. He's got all kinds of tricks. I want to play Shaco. And then it's like, well, now I have to save up to buy Shaco. And it's going to take a lot of games to buy that. Why not just give him Shaco? Or maybe someone's like, hey, I really like vampires. Vampires are sweet. I've read all of Twilight or something. Whatever it is, I like vampires. I want to play Vlad. Just give them Vlad. That's what I think, because certain players like certain types of champions, and the random shard giveaway, it helps people build a champion pool, but let's be realistic. Most people don't play most champions. Most people probably play, 50 champions or less at the max. I would say most people usually play 10 champions or less, because they have their favorites, right? It's just certain champions, you just like their kit, you like their style, you like their lore, whatever, and you want to play that champion. So just giving people random champions, I think, it helps, but it's not good. Just give them ones that they want. When they start, when they're new. 5 free champions. And then I think make it a little easier to get the champions. It takes too long to unlock everything in this game. It took me like 5 or 6 years to get all of the rune pages and all of the champions, and I played a lot of games. So I think if someone buys a 975 RP skin, you should just give them the champion on the house. They buy the new skin that you came up with, give them the champ. I think that sounds fun to me. Yeah, don't give them the champ if it's like a 200 RP skin. That's probably pushing it. But I think if it's 975 or up, kind of a standard, reasonable skin, I think it's like $10 or something, then I think you should give it to them. So that would help people, unlock the game. If they want to buy skins for their favorite champ, they should be able to go ahead and get the champ and just give them the 5 free things, 5 free champions. This is not going to cost Riot a lot of money. In fact, it'll make them money. Because if you give somebody that Shaco that they really want, instead of giving them a random, Janna shard or something like that, if they get that Shaco, they're more likely to play it and enjoy the game, because that's the kind of champion they want. And when they enjoy the game, they're going to play it more. And if they play it more, they're more likely to buy skins for it. Business model. So I think that's what they should be doing. Give people what they want. Give them a little tease. Get their skin in the game. Get them intrigued. Let them start playing, normal 5v5s faster. Give them the champions they want so they can, have a good time playing it, and they're more likely to stay around in your game and spend money on it. Maybe that's crazy, but that's just what I think. Okay, autofill is awful. That's another thing that needs to get worked on here. I think everybody can agree with that. This is the primary problem. Believe it or not, people talk about, oh, this is imbalanced, or that's imbalanced, or this champion. There are certain champions that are really strong, but the problem is autofill is the biggest thing when people don't get their main role. Now, there's a school of thought out there. It's like, oh, back in the day, seasons 1 through 5, everyone had to just call their role and play it, and back then we liked it that way. It's like, it was bad back then too, man. It was. And there was the same level of trolling. I was around back then, I know. You'd have somebody that would go, first pick, maybe the third person down immediately when you get into the chat room and say, mid. I call mid. And then first pick's like, sorry, dude, I'm playing mid. And then the other one's like, but I called it. That was a constant thing. It was like, was it pick order or who called it? And it was pick order. But then you'd have the person say, okay, we're going double mid. And just pick it that way. Or the last person would say anything but support. And you stick him with support. And then he would just be like, all right, well, I'm going to troll. And just play Teemo support or something like that. So it's always been bad for people who get filled. Because there's a couple of reasons for this. Obvious things that most people understand. First of all, the skill differential. And the higher you up, the worse this gets. Whereas, in Platinum, for example, if you have someone who's an 80 carry main who gets auto-filled top lane, and they have no idea what they're doing, they've played maybe 10 games of top all season, and they're playing against somebody who has 2,000 games at top, they're going to get smoked. They're going to get destroyed most of the time. And so a lot of games can feel like just whichever team has the most autofills loses. And that's not always the case, but a lot of times, especially the higher up you go, the worse that's going to get. And so I think the easiest solution to this, another thing is it just feels bad. it just feels like you're getting cheated. It feels like it's a roll of the dice, like both for the player and for the people on his team. This guy can't help it that he signed up for 80 carry and that he gets top lane, and that he has to play that. And people might say, well, you should learn every lane. Maybe this dude works a 9-to-5 job and he's got like a girlfriend or a wife or something, and maybe he just plays like 2 or 3 games of League a day. Maybe he plays 2 games a day. He doesn't have time to learn other roles. Maybe he's been playing League for 4 years and he's like, hey, I can play 80 carry at a gold level or whatever this is because I used to play back in the day a lot more. I understand how it works. Some stuff changes, but I get it. Like, I've been in the lane. I know, like, what's going on. But he's not going to have time to learn another role or top lane, right? I think it's unreasonable to expect normal people who, only play the game for a few, maybe, like I said, 2 or 3 games a day that have other stuff going on, or maybe they want to play other games or watch TV or, hang out with friends or whatever, right? They just want to play League for maybe a couple hours a day. It's unreasonable to expect that, they're going to be able to keep up with all 5 positions against somebody who plays that role all the time, right? So even if, little Johnny here gets auto-filled top lane, he only plays 2 games a day, and he's up against Carl in the top lane, who also plays 2 games a day, but Carl, plays 14 or 12 or whatever games of top every week because he gets that all the time. And little Jimmy, this is the first time this has happened to him this week, so he's only going to have 2 games. That adds up over time. So I don't think it's a reasonable expectation for everybody to know every role equally to be able to keep up with someone who plays that as a main role. That's just ludicrous. So it's a serious problem. And, it is balanced out over time. It's like if you play 1,000 games, yeah, the enemy team's going to have a bunch of autofills too, and you're going to have a bunch of autofills, and games are just going to be decided by that. But that still doesn't feel good. Like, it doesn't feel good saying, okay, well, I got screwed over these 5 games in a row, but 200 games in the future, I'm going to go on a 5-game win streak because the enemy team are all going to be autofilled in a row. Like, that doesn't feel good. So it feels bad. It feels like you're getting screwed. It feels like your team's getting screwed. It feels arbitrary, which it is arbitrary, who gets autofilled, and it feels bad. Like I said, I don't think it's a coin flip. I don't think that's an excuse for why someone didn't meet their goals in rank this season. Oh, well, my team's always autofilled, because it happens to the enemy team too. So it's not an excuse that you can't climb. It feels bad. It just makes the game just not feel like it's fair. And some games aren't fair. There are individual games where no matter what you do, you will lose. And that's just the nature of 5v5 games and sort of random teams, but at the same time, this exacerbates the situation. This makes it feel much worse. So the easy solution is just to say, hey, if you don't want to be autofilled, you should be able to check a box and say, I'm willing to wait. As long as it takes, I will wait until I get one of my 2 positions. I think expecting people to know 2 positions is reasonable. So, like, one is your main position, the other one, like, you can learn enough to where you can get by. Right, so if your main is 80 carry, you can learn a support, enough to get by. I think that's a reasonable request. But learning all 5 roles is not reasonable. So that's what I think. You should just opt into it. And that way, if you want the faster queue, if you're like, hey, I'm okay if I'm autofilled, I play the game a lot, I've got a couple of decent picks in every position, and, I'm cool with that. Versus, if you check on it, you say, no, absolutely 100%, I want to play mid or top or something like that. You should be able to click on it, and by God, if you want to wait 5 minutes for that, you should be able to wait 5 minutes for that. Because I think a lot of people would rather wait 5 minutes for a queue and guarantee get exactly what they want. Not exactly, but one of the 2 roles, mid or top. Getting the exact role would probably take too long, but I could see doing the 2 roles, one of the 2 roles. Getting exactly one of your 2 roles, they'd be willing to wait an extra 5 minutes rather than risk wasting 20 minutes in a game they know they're going to lose when they get filled into the jungle and they never play jungle. They don't want to play jungle. That's not what they want to do with their time. That's just a waste of time because they know they're probably going to lose and they just don't have fun doing it. So just give the people what they want. If they want to wait longer to guarantee their role, then they should be able to wait longer. I think that's the easiest solution. However, Riot's not doing that. I wish they did, but they are doing this new positional rank system, which we'll talk about here in a second. But this will help. It's basically going to say the biggest thing out of this is if someone gets one of their off positions that they don't play a lot, they're going to be pulled down into a lower bracket. So if they're usually like gold 5 at 80 carry, and they play 80 carry 90% of the time, and they get like filled into the jungle, and they've only played 3 jungle games all season, then they're probably going to be playing at like a silver 4 or a silver 5 jungle level. So that will even it out a little bit more, because now they're going to be playing against people that are weaker overall players, so that maybe they can compensate for their lack of like knowledge about the specific champion with stuff like better macro, better timing, better mechanics, stuff like that can compensate for their lack of experience on the champ. So I think that's a really, really good choice. Now, is that going to hurt like Iron 4 people or people down at the very bottom? Yes, of course, because they can't drop any lower than that. But realistically, in that ELO, a lot of people are still trying to learn the game anyways. There's still going to be so many opportunities to come back into the game that I think it's okay if you're like... That's the place where it's most okay. If you get auto-filled, or because people just aren't going to be experts in the champs yet anyways. So, yeah, that is kind of a problem, is very, near the very bottom of the brackets. That could create some issues, but... Even then, though, it's based on MMR, I think, and not just your LP. So you're going to be playing against, like, the really low, bronze 4 or iron 4 people. Even if you're just a normal iron 4 person who's got, like, average MMR, and you get placed as, like, auto-filled as jungle, you're going to be playing against the really low jungle people, probably, so... Anyways, I think that's a good idea. Not the ideal idea. The simplest answer is often the best one, I think. I mean, maybe there's a reason they can't do that. Maybe it would be like 20-minute queues. I don't know the exact numbers on that, but... Anyways. Okay, and the final thing here, and this is kind of hinting at balance, but it's not about specific champs. We'll talk about specific champs if we have time a little bit near the end of the video. But I think they need to do this. They need to, as a balance team, look at these, like, 6 things or 7 things that I have here and say a champion can't have more than 3 of these. Now, you could combine some of these categories, like maybe laning and scaling, just call that damage. But I think that champions should not have more than 3 of this. Like, these are the kind of questions they should be asking, right? There should not be champions that are good at everything. In other words, they should have very clear, discernible strengths, very clear, discernible weaknesses, okay? So, laning, like how good is the champion in laning, bullying early on in the game, scaling, how well does the champion perform over time, wave clear, mobility, resilience, crowd control, and utility. Particularly, a champion should not be very difficult to kill, and fast, and do a lot of damage. Those are the 3 biggest ones. I mean, if you had to pick 3 out of this, that would be the 3 biggest ones. They should not be fast, strong, what was the other one? I don't remember. Shouldn't be fast, yeah, hard, damaging, and hard to kill. I guess strong could be hard to kill and damaging. So, shouldn't be fast, a lot of damage, hard to kill. If you notice, what's that combination? That's Aatrox, that's Irelia. Basically, those are like gross violations. Urgot to an extent too. He's not as mobile as the other 2, but like Akali to an extent can be kind of like that as well. I think that she, if you actually get a hold of her, a lot of times you can kill her, but that Shroud makes her very resilient. So resiliency is not just like how much armor and magic resist you have, but just like which mechanics do you have that make it difficult to kill you. It could be shields, it could be the Shroud, it could be healing. So, champions should not violate that. So common champions that violate this right now are Irelia, Akali, Aatrox, Urgot, LeBlanc, Kai'Sa, Lucian, Jax, Yi, and Kassadin to an extent, I think. Now, some of these, like Yi has very distinct weaknesses, though. He's very bad early game. He does not have a lot of CC. And Yi's kind of a product of the meta, right? So Yi is like... Currently, he's in violation of this because there aren't tanks with a lot of CC right now, I think. But, I mean, some of these are kind of questionable. I started off with the ones that are, like, obviously, like, super problematic. But some of these other ones are problems. Now, they are nerfing Rage Blades. That will definitely chip into Yi a little bit. But, yeah, he does have some discernible weaknesses. Kassadin, historically has had a really bad laning phase, right? And so that's kind of what his weakness was, because once he gets his Rod of the Ages, he very quickly turns into someone who's highly mobile, resilient, and does a lot of damage, right? But they changed around the runes a lot so that he has a ton of sustain, so he no longer has a weaker laning phase. So that could be a problem. I really, like, these are so obviously, like, really broken right now that I have no idea. I guess they just wanted people to finish out the season with them, but a lot of these kind of, like... And I'd have to think more carefully about the itemization. Like, I think Sterix is a huge problem because almost all of these get a Sterix. Because that shield just gives you so much extra effective health, and it still gives you, like, pretty good damage and HP on top of it. I'd have to look at the numbers, but I think that is a particularly troubling item. Trinity Force. A lot of these actually don't use Trinity Force. A lot of them are kind of using Cleaver. I mean, they're different sorts of builds, but I think that items like GA and Sterix in general are potentially pretty toxic because they give offense and defense. I don't think there should be that many items that do offense and defense. I think you have to choose. You know, if you want to build a lot of damage, you build damage. If you want to build a defensive item, you're losing a lot of damage. I think that there should be a lot more of that type of stuff. Or you should have to pay more for having hybrid utilities. They should increase the cost of these things. So Sterix, fine. You want the big shield, you're paying a lot more gold for it. You're paying an extra couple hundred gold for it. Something like that. Now, I always like to, you know, include, like, well, what's good balance then? I think these champions are pretty balanced. Like, they're good, they're effective, you can pick them and win games right now, but they don't feel oppressive. So, like, Zed, Orianna, Twisted Fate, Jinx, Misfortune, Gangplank, Lee Sin. Now, Zed might be pushing the envelope a little bit here, but I think that, and that's a lot of that's just because he's an assassin, and assassins in general are really strong right now. But I think Zed is one of the better balanced assassins because you have time to react to him. When he ults in, you have time to shield or flash or do something. Now, if he's, like, super fed, you know, okay. Like, he's going to be difficult to deal with. But I think there's more counterplay to a fed Zed, I think, than there is to, like, a fed Talon or, like, a fed Fizz or a Kali or a LeBlanc or whatever. Zed has to use meaningful cooldowns to jump around. And you actually have to hit skill shots to do your damage. You know, if you miss both of your shurikens after you ult somebody, you're probably not going to do enough damage to kill him. And he has some wave clear, but he has to use that shadow if he wants the really good wave clear. And that means that he's opening himself up to potentially, you know, dying or getting ganked in the mid lane. So I think he has interesting choices. He's actually pretty difficult to play at an optimal level. I think he's a pretty well-balanced assassin. Compared to something like LeBlanc, who is super degenerate, where, you know, she can jump twice on a really low cooldown. So she can jump, you know, like almost the length of a screen, probably more than that. I think her jump is like 600 range or something. It might even be more than that. So she can jump like 600, and then chain somebody, which is like an extra 800. So she basically has 1800 engage range. If she hits her chain, okay, you're probably dead. If she misses her chain, whatever, she just goes right back to where she was, waits 30 seconds, and then has Mimic again. So I think to nerf someone like LeBlanc, they should say she can't mimic her W. I think that's the easiest thing. It's like, okay, she could jump once and then hop back to wherever she was. She can throw 2 chains if she wants. She can throw 2 Qs if she wants. You could also nerf her damage so much that there's no way you could kill somebody without hitting them with double chains or with double Qs. So just nerf her AP ratios into the dirt, or nerf the base damage into the dirt. That could be an option, but I think that just nerfing her Mimic, where she can't do it twice, is the best way to go about it. And then just say, look, if you jump in once, you hit them with the chains. I feel like if they get binded by the chains, they should die. But if they dodge your chains or they're able to get out of range, they should be okay. And you should be able to punish her for going in. But anyways, so I think they need to think about it more like that. Like, what's this champion going to be good at? Okay, is Irelia going to be a highly mobile, high damage champion? Or is she going to be a very tanky, tank buster type of champion with true damage? I think true damage should be, like, you should have to pay a much, much higher price for true damage too, because true damage is very good against everybody. It's very good against tanks, it's very good against squishies, because right now she's everything. She beats tanks, She's very difficult to kill, so she can win in team fight situations. She has like good utility in CC with her stun and her disarm. She has really high burst damage. She has really high sustain damage. She's pretty good in the laning phase. She has pretty good wave clear. She's good at everything. Similar with Akali, similar with Aatrox, Urgot, all that. So I just think they need to say, look, these champions can have a couple of these things, but they can't have them all. And I think that especially mobility should be penalized a lot more, or properly balanced a lot more, I should say. So if something's really mobile, they should do less damage than something that can't move very much. So someone like Jinx should do a lot more damage than Kai'Sa or Lucian, because she can't really move that well. Like, if she gets a kill or a reset, yeah, she can run around, but she can't dash and dodge skill shots as much. Same thing with, like, Kog'Maw. Kog'Maw should be the highest damage AD carry in the game, because he has very limited utility, and he has to stand still and just auto. That's all he does for his damage. And so, you know, if you're really trying to balance, he should do the most by a lot. Now, maybe you don't want him to come online until, like, 2 items, but right now there's just never, ever, like, a time you should pick Kog'Maw when Kai'Sa's up. Kai'Sa does same damage, possibly even more damage, but she has way more utility. She can go invisible. She can dash. You know, she has her ultimate with this big shield. She has better wave clear than he does early on. She's better at assassinating. She has a more versatile build path where she can build things like Banshee's Veil or Zhonya's and still be able to blow people up. Like, you shouldn't be able to do all of that. So I don't mind mobility. I think it's cool. Like, it's great to be able to make out plays, but you should have to pay a price for that. There should be plenty of counterplay to it. Lee Sin is a great example of mobility done right. You know, if he hits you with that Q, you have time to react to that. You know what's going on, right? You know he could come in on you. That's one of the most fun things about Lee, right? Is like, he hits you with that Q. It's that little mind game. Is he going to go in or not? You know, can he fake out your flash? Is he going to fake out your thresh, your flay, or whatever your stop movement ability is? Or is he going to go in? And it takes really good decision-making on Lee's part. And then he has to position behind you to get that initiate to kick you backwards. So I think that Lee is highly mobile, assassin type of champ done right. I think someone like Nidalee is also in that camp, potentially. Like, really high skill cap. You hit your stuff, she feels great. You miss, it feels awful. So anyways, I think there should be more of that, and that's something that they could work on. So I don't think it's necessarily there's too much damage in the game overall. There is a little bit. I think it's just bringing tanks back into the fold a bit more and just having discernible weaknesses. Saying, hey, okay, this champion does this. If I can get this other thing, I can counter it. Or this is like the style of game I can play to deal with this champion. Okay. Preseason, Season 9 changes. Another thing, just a final note on this, is when you have champions like Irelia and Aatrox and Urgot, it pushes every other champion out of the game, top lane, right? Because there are certain champions that do some things really, really well, right? Like Fiora, for example, split pushes extremely well. She might even be able to beat someone like Irelia or Aatrox in a split push, maybe, in the end game. But her problem is she doesn't do everything else they do, right? She's easier to kill. She's much worse in team fights. She's less mobile. She has less utility, right? But she's very good at what she does. Or like Tryndamere, for example, good at split pushing, bad at everything else. And so, like, these things that are actually limited, that have certain distinct weaknesses, just can't ever be played because you have these jack-of-all-trades that are close to what they do, potentially even better than what they're trying to do, but they're also good at everything else. So that's the issue there, is it really kind of ruins the meta and ruins champion diversity when you have that type of stuff. I'm not saying we should go to like a rock, paper, scissors model of gameplay. I'm just saying that there should definitely be trade-offs for certain things, and certain things need to be prioritized a lot more, like mobility. You should do less damage, for example, or you should be more vulnerable if you have mobility. They should be able to either kill you, or you shouldn't be able to kill them as easily if you're mobile. Okay. So what are they doing with Season 9 changes here? And I guess finally I'm getting to like the Season 9 changes at like 60 minutes in. But I don't know. I just wanted to talk about all that other stuff because I think to really understand like why they're doing what they're doing in Season 9 and to understand like is it going to be successful, it's important to understand this other stuff too. Okay, so Oh, I forgot to put this in here real quickly. And it's been a while since I made a guide too, so it's probably gonna be a little on the long side. See if we can get it done in like an hour and 15 here, though. Okay, so tower plating, I like this idea. I wasn't very sure about it at first, but I played with it on the PvE a couple of times, and it feels pretty good. So basically what they're doing is they're giving towers 5,000 health, so they're giving them more health, and they are tying their... I can pull up the exact numbers here for you, I think. Let me see. Scroll down a little bit. They are, I think it's 40 armor per plate that goes down. So now outer turrets don't have any armor or magic resist. Normally it's replaced by plating. And what plating is basically every plate that's missing, I believe, adds more armor and magic resist to the equation. So I think it's 40 per plate. Where did I see? There was something that was talking about the full plates somewhere. Is it here? So they do more damage over time. So they are going to be, like, it's going to be harder to dive them. So it's easier to kill them past 14 minutes when all the plates fall off, but it's going to be harder to dive them. So if you're not hitting them, if you're trying to dive champions and the tower's hitting you, it's going to do a lot more damage. So it can go all the way up from 152 damage to 278 damage. It's like, that's a lot. It's over a 50% increase in damage. Oh, here it is. So it's 40 plus 30 destroyed. So basically it starts off with 40 armor, and then if you kill one plate, there's 5 of them. When you kill one plate, it goes to 70 armor. And then when you kill the next plate, it goes to 100 armor, and so on and so forth. So it gets harder and harder to kill each additional plate. And then for 20 seconds... I think, does it just... there was something like it's 20 seconds after you kill a plate, it gets that bonus. Maybe it's only for 20 seconds. But every champion beyond the first that's near a tower is going to lower, or is going to increase the armor and magic resist by 25. So, that means that you can't just gang up on a tower. Or if you do, you know, if you, like... Someone ganks bottom and 3 people are sitting there pounding on that tower, it's going to have a lot more resistance to it. So you're still going to do more damage, but it's going to be less overall damage, a lot less than it is currently if you gang up on a tower like that. So I think this is good. So what's the goal of doing this? Why do this? Okay, so the main reason is they want laning to last longer, and the plates fall off at 14 minutes, as I said before. So they want laning to last longer. That's goal number 1. So they want you to be able to say, hey, if you're a good player, if you are superior... you know, at this game, then you're going to have more chance to express that smaller scale in the laning phase, right? So if you're the better mid laner, or whatever, and you're playing against this other guy, you're going to have an additional 14 minutes to try to punish this dude, because now bot lane's not going to fall, and everyone's going to come crowd your mid lane. I'm sure if you're a mid laner, you're familiar with that, right? If you're a bot laner, you're familiar with getting the 4-man dive bottom, right? So now you can't just have, you know, the whatever, the Sejuani jungle. I guess it's not even Sejuani. Let's just say you have, like, Alistar, Jhin bot lane, and then you have Xin Zhao in the jungle and TF mid lane, something like that, right? And then TF pushes his lane in. You know, Xin Zhao spots the enemy jungler up on the top side of the map, and he says, all right, let's do this. They go bottom. Alistar Jhin pushes you in. Alistar is level 6. Engages on you, pops his ult, and then Zen and TF just go after you, double kill you. There's no counterplay to it because your jungler's on the top side, and they just dive you, murder you, burn your tower, go get dragon, reset, go to mid lane, or go to Rift Herald or whatever, and then just snowball the game out of control, right? So if you're a mid laner, that's not going to happen as much. People aren't going to come and invade your lane because bot lane's not going to fall as fast. So you're going to have more time for individual skill expression. And that's what they want. This is kind of this is a more healthy solo carry mentality rather than overbuffing assassins, so that you can be the person who roams bot and murders everybody and goes like 5-0 and snowballs the game from there. Like, that's what the solo carry paradigm is right now, versus they want to say, hey, look, we're not going to be handing out as many free kills. We're going to, like, nerf the assassins a little bit. But you're going to have a chance to get incremental advantages in the laning phase, and we're going to extend that so that you can turn this smaller lead where you're gaining like an extra CS per wave, or 2 CS per wave or something on average, because you're denying them, we're going to turn that into a bigger advantage by the time the lanes break. That's good. That's healthy. I like that a lot because it's going to just slow down the snowball and give people a chance to have their own little, matchups. Not have it ruined by one of the other lanes getting destroyed and broken really quickly, and then the other team just kind of goon squads around the map. So, that's the goal. I think that's good. However, they also, since, they want to reward people for being aggressive, though, and winning the lane. Because if you do that, like, one of the big rewards right now for winning the lane is you get to go around the map, right? You get to move and get all the dragons and get all that other stuff and close out games. So, they don't want that to be a feels bad. Like, well, I crushed my lane, but now it just takes longer to get the tower. It's going to let them back into the game, and then it's going to be out of my control. It's going to be down to, the idiot that is out splitting by himself without teleport at 40 minutes in the game on the bot side of the map when Baron's up, right? So it's a delicate balance. So what they're doing then is if you are aggressive and you are pushing them to tower, you're taking that risk. It is a risk to move up to tower. So if you're pushing up to tower, risking getting ganked, but you're slamming your lane, you're going to get more gold out of it. So every time you take out one of these plates, then you get 160 local gold, right? So all 5 plates, that is 800 local gold, and then it's 150 for first tower blood now. So that's 950 gold. So I think that's pretty good. Now, I think that's all local gold, though, too. Destroying per plate. I don't know if you get the tower on top of that or not, actually, now that I'm reading this. Because plates go away at 14 minutes. So I assume towers aren't worthless. They're still worth some kind of gold after 15 minutes. So you get more than that. Maybe they're keeping the current tower. Thought I had something like that open. Maybe you get the current tower gold too, which I think is like 50 for everybody. And it's like, isn't it like 150 for the people that take it? Let me see this. So they might actually keep the current tower gold also, and you get the plate gold. That's what it would seem like to me. Yeah, it's 250 plus 50. So if you get the plate gold, that would be 950, and then you get this, that would be 1150, 1250, and then that'd be like 1400 gold if you get first tower gold. Now, I'm not sure, once again, if you're going to get killing tower money off of that. But if the plates drop off, unless they just stack all the gold on the tower, like once the plates fall, then you just get all of the gold that the remaining plates had, they might do that. It's not clear in this. I feel like getting 1400 gold or so for the tower is a little excessive, so that's probably not what they're doing. But either way, the goal is to extend the laning phase, but if you can push the tower, if you're Caitlyn or something, and you siege them down and you start breaking these plates, you have a winning lane, you're going to end up with more gold. That's the moral of the story. It's going to take you less time to it's going to take you more time to break the tower, so you're not going to be able to roam around and get those macro advantages as early, but you're going to get smaller, like, incremental advantages in that specific lane. So it's not going to ruin other lanes, but it's going to make you stronger as a lane as you break those plates down. So I think overall that's pretty good. And then another change they're making is you have stronger minions, and that punishes more for roaming, and it's a larger penalty for lost fights. So right now, and that's where... Okay, here we go. So the minions are getting more damage, so damage to towers is actually lowered a little bit to 50% on all minions. But they're getting to move a lot faster. So between 10 and 30 minutes, they're going from plus 25 to plus 100 move speed. So these things are booking it. Whereas right now, they get plus 25 at 20 minutes. So these things are going to be moving a lot faster down the lane. And that's going to exacerbate, if a lane is pushing, it's going to push even faster. So that's going to accelerate the rate at which these uneven lanes push faster. And then the melee minions are getting extra HP over time, armor, and they're getting a lot more AD. Look at this. Max AD increased from 12 to 80. 80 max AD on the melee champions. Holy crap, those things are going to hit like a truck later on. Forget having to worry about getting minion aggro early on. Now you're going to have to be worried about getting minion aggro at 30 minutes in the game. Those things are going to beat you down. And the caster minions, from 60 to 120. So that's double damage. This is like 7 times the damage, just about. It's like 6.5 times the damage. So yeah, they do like less percentage damage to towers, but they are gonna beat some people down. And the cannon minion is gonna take longer to die. So all of this basically means, and super minions are a bit weaker, so the base AD is lowered on supers. Base attack speed is up a little bit though. It no longer gives 70% extra damage to surrounding minions though, so supers are gonna push a lot slower. So what does this mean? Why would they do this? Well, this is going to help games close out faster. Pretty much, if you win a fight with those minions, you're going to be able to plow those towers way faster without Baron buff. Okay, and so that's the biggest thing, is like, if everybody just ARAMs middle and dies, then they might get 2 towers now instead of just 1. So that's a pretty big deal. It's also going to punish roaming more. So if you're a champion that wave clears really well, because there's always been this tension between wave clear and roam. And right now, like, roaming is too strong relative to wave clear. So, for example, if you have, like, an Anivia mid lane, and you have a Fizz mid lane, like, right now, the Fizz can go roam bottom, get a kill or 2, and Anivia might be able to deny, like, 1, maybe 2 waves to the tower if she pushes. That's not worth, though. Like, yeah, he's losing some experience, he is taking a risk by going down there, but you're not able to threaten the tower as Anivia, really. Depending on your vision, he might come back, you might get ganked, you can't push up that far, it's really risky. Well, now, if you do that, you're going to get a lot more damage on that tower and potentially take it a lot faster. So if you are a wave clear champion in the mid lane, you're an Anivia, you're an Orianna, an Azir, a Cassiopeia, these types of champions that are pretty terrible at roaming, but they're pretty good at wave clear, you can punish now. So now if that Talon roams bottom, that Fizz roams bottom, you can take out a lot of their tower. You might even be able to take out the whole tower on one rotation. I don't know if it's going to be that extreme, but you certainly get like half of it, because these things are going to do so much more damage. Now, yes, this is like over time, so this isn't like at the start of the game they're getting that much damage. But either way, they're going to be a lot stronger. And so now it's even riskier to go roam. So yeah, roaming can pay off. And it should pay off. Like, if you make a good roam, you're taking a risk, If you fail that roam, you're already losing experience and gold at the tower. But right now, it's just not enough. Like, it's almost universally the best idea to go roam as much as possible, most of the time, if you're a mid laner. So, I think that it's interesting. This will bring some control mages back, I think, because now wave clear and denying CS to towers and threatening towers will make people think twice about roaming as much as they currently do. So overall, I think that's good. You'll close out games faster, allow for a little bit more champion variety, a few more like strategic choices out there, where now wave clear is actually going to be at a premium again, or at least it's going to be a much higher value than roaming, at least relative to what it currently is. So I think that'll be good. Now the super thing though, they want to basically slow it down and just say, look, if you get an inhibitor, it's not GG. Especially with all of these other buffs to minions, like, you still get some supers that's helpful, but if they got, 70% extra damage on top of all this, like, that would just be ridiculous. There'd be no way to stop it. So supers will still push, they'll still be annoying, but these minions will be able to hold them off a bit more. It's not going to be like the supers are just going to be in your base constantly, within 30 seconds or so whenever they crack your inhibitor, right? It's going to take a bit longer to push down the waves. And if you do manage to push out the super wave a bit more, so you find some time to push out that bot lane for a little bit after you win a team fight, you push it back, to halfway at the map, and then you'll have more time to go defend Barons. It's going to take the supers longer to stack up and push through all that. I don't know how much longer. These numbers are obviously subject to change. This patch isn't out yet, but I think that's the idea, is if you can, like, get out of that chokehold a little bit with the supers, then you'll have more time to look for opportunities to get back into the game, to fight them before those supers get on your Nexus. So Super's still good, just not as overbearing as they are right now. And the same thing is with Baron. So they're dialing back some of the damage on Baron, so you can actually kill the minions, or turrets can kill the minions. Minion protection from champ damage. So they kind of normalize that. So they still do have some protection from champs, but they do get some damage from Baron. Especially Baroned up supers now are not going to be as oppressive as they currently are. Like, it's impossible to stop a Baroned up super push right now, pretty much. Like, it's game over. If they have an inhibitor down and they get Baron, like, unless your team just hardcore throws, like, you don't even have to hit the tower. You just walk up to it and stand close, and the supers are just going to run it over. So they're dialing that back a little bit. So Baron's still important, but not as game deciding as it is right now, because it gives you an advantage, but now it's an incremental advantage instead of an exponential advantage, because your minions are already pretty strong. And they're going to be able to fight back against those Baron buff minions. They're going to be able to fight back against the supers a little bit better. So I think that sounds like better balancing to me. Okay, and if your team is a higher level, I didn't even realize this was in there. If your team's a higher level, then your minions don't get any kind of bonus stats anymore. So that's interesting. Now, to compensate for that, so Baron is not as insane as it currently is, although it will still be very good. You still get all that gold, you still get the buff, and it still does help you push. It's just not like auto-win like it is now. But Baron is respawning 1 minute faster, so you get to contest for more Barons, which I think is fun. Elder Dragon is 2 minutes faster, from 8 to 6. Because right now, Elder just feels like it doesn't matter in most games. Like, game's over. By the time people go for Elder, it's done. So, and then the Elemental Drakes are 5 minutes from 6 minutes, which I like. I like this. This is good. This is going to force more potential team fights, more objectives, more action on a map. Because there's just, like, these dead zones in the mid-game, you know, where, like, team's not strong enough to take Baron yet, or Baron's not even spawned yet. Dragon's down. You've already got the first couple of towers down, but they're sitting there just like wave clearing, and you can't do much else. It's like, what are you supposed to do? You just kind of wander around and like hope to pick somebody off, or like maybe split push. I think the more often these kind of objectives are on the map, the more interesting the game becomes, because there are more decisions and more trade-offs you have to make. So I think that's very good overall, to lower the power of Baron a little bit, make it spawn faster, and then make these other objectives more interesting over time. So I think that's good. Overall, very good macro decisions they're making there. So all in all, I think this is going to allow for much better pacing of the game. There's going to be much less like snowball at the very beginning. It's going to be 0 to 14 minutes laning phase. Because like I said, I mean, the biggest thing right now, the biggest change is going to be So, for example, if you're doing well bot lane, let's say you're 2-0, you're up 25 CS on the bot lane, you're doing your thing, but your mid laner's like 0-4, and then the jungler just keeps ganking them, breaks mid lane, then they're going to come down and like rain on your party and just 4-man dive you and camp you bot lane over and over again. The same thing can happen mid lane. If your bot lane fails, they're going to come to your lane. So now you're going to have more time to beat up and show your individual skill against that laning phase before everyone comes and mobs your lane, to where you have no counterplay at that point. So now, instead of them breaking that mid lane at 9 minutes and coming down and camping your lane, it might take them until 14 minutes. That's at least going to give you time to maybe go to, instead of 2-0, now you're 4-0 and you're up 45 CS or something like that. Well, now you have a much better chance of potentially fending off that mid laner that they had that was really fed, because you've had more time to scale up and at least get an item and a half or something before they come down there. So that's okay. Or if your top lane's winning too, let's say your top lane is in a similar situation where they're up 3 kills and a bunch of gold, then that gives them more time with their top lane. So now if your mid lane gets obliterated, it's not going to ruin the whole game, because, right now they go, they obliterate mid lane, then they obliterate bot, then they go obliterate top. And even if your top and your bottom are winning, they just like rotate and rain on your parade so fast that you're not able to gather up enough power to stop that snowball. So I think it's going to be much better for lane pacing. So 0 to 14 minutes probably will be about laning phase, 14 to 25, maybe the mid game, and then 25 plus is like late game. And I think that's much more consistent pacing. So I think the idea is really good overall. And we'll see if we can end at an hour 30 here. Just about done. Positional rank, I think, is going to be a really good idea. I described this earlier. The main reason for this is it's going to help out with autofill. So, when you get assigned jungle and you sign up for mid lane and you never play jungle, well, now you're going to be playing against people that are much lower ranked than you, in theory. So that it'll be a competitive game. You can still have fun. It'll still be interesting. Now, some people might think, well, why would I care about this? I'm not a jungle main. Who cares? It's not going to affect my, mid lane win rate. So I'm just going to troll around in this game. They're working on that. I know there are exploits, to that where people either could not care or maybe like different things where you duo with a friend and then you switch roles or switch position or something like that. I'm sure there will be exploits, but there are exploits right now to that all the time. You can still, you can duo queue a gold 5 with a platinum 1 player or whatever. And I would consider it borderline an exploit that you are, getting placed in a role you've never played, and now all of a sudden you have to play against people that are way better than you. I would consider that an exploit. Because right now, so many games are ruined because your top lane's auto-filled playing Teemo for the first time against that Aatrox that's got, 1,500 games on Aatrox. So it's you're never going to solve all the problems, but I would rather have it where the baseline problem, where the skill matchups are closer to even, where that's fixed, and then try to fix the idea of motivation with player behavioral stuff or different rewards or, something like that. So, maybe if you get auto-filled and you perform at a reasonable rate, maybe you get extra honor or something like that. I don't know what it is. But I would rather fix the gameplay itself and make for more fairly matched games in terms of skill level and then figure out the motivation issues later. And I think that's what they've decided to go with here. So I think that's good. And then secondly, if it's burnout, right? So if you just played Draven, you've got 800 Draven games, you made it up to, Platinum 3 or something, and then you're just tired of it. You just don't want to play Draven anymore. You just want to play something else that's fun. Maybe you want to go play Xin Zhao in the jungle or whatever, and you switch over to that. Well, now you can do that, right, without getting completely bulldozed because you're going to be playing against weaker opponents. So maybe your macro knowledge and overall mechanics and game knowledge can help you compensate for that. So it will allow you to play something other than your one trick, still have fun, and be a much more competitive and interesting game, especially for your teammates, right, that don't, I worry about this. If I play something off-roll and I'm terrible, I feel bad, in a lot of games to do that because I feel like I'm letting my team down to an extent. Also, it's just not fun to get destroyed, over and over again when you're playing an off-roll. So basically, if you autofill yourself by playing something other than your one trick or what you're really good at, you can do that and feel a lot more confident in doing that, both in your own abilities, but then also in not letting down your team. So I think that's good. So yeah, overall, will there be some exploits? Sure, but I think it's going to allow more diversity in play, and it's going to fix a lot of the autofill issues. So I think it's great. And then finally, the Iron plus the Grandmaster, the new tiers, I think are a good idea. I think their placement isn't that great. I think that they should have had Iron tier between Bronze and Silver, and I think that Grandmaster should have been down to some. I think they should have just made what they currently call Diamond. I think they should have made that something else, and then they should have made the Master and Grandmaster. Basically, they should have put something between Platinum and Diamond, pretty much, because I think a lot of people. So here are the problems with where they currently put their things. Iron, first of all, Bronze is iconic. It's always been Bronze. That's the meme. Why would you change that? Right? So that's number one. It's just from a clarity of information perspective. Bronze, a lot of people think of Bronze as the lowest rank, so it shouldn't be changed. Secondly, this is going to be a feels bad for people that are currently in Bronze that get moved to Iron, because it's lower. That's a feels bad. Because it's the same thing. Maybe it's the same distribution. Maybe they're in the bottom 20% of players, but now it's going to feel even worse because now they're going to be like, oh, well, it's Iron instead of Bronze. And so that's just really, it feels bad. I do think there needs to be something else down there because most players who play the game are in Silver or Bronze. That's 75% of the players. I think Gold is 25% and up. So there does need to be more distinction, because right now people get so confused. They're like, oh, there are these 7 different, tiers, and if I'm in one of the bottom tier or the second bottom tier, then I'm terrible. It's like, no, you're not. You're average. The other 7 tiers are the other 5 tiers are for like the top 25% of players. It just doesn't seem that way because we think like median, like we don't think about it in terms of the like the curve and how that actually works, the exponential curve of it, right? Where there are way more people in bronze than there are in silver, and then there's way more people in gold than there are, or way more people in silver than gold, way more in gold than there are in platinum. It goes up like that. So like platinum is the top like 5% of players. It's like between 3 and 8% of players, and then you have diamond, master, and challenger. So that's 4 different tiers devoted to 8% of players versus 3 tiers, bronze, silver, gold, that are devoted to the other 92% of players. What? So it's very confusing for people. So I think they do need more distinction down there. But I would have done it probably between bronze and silver, so that now it can be a feels good. If you're bronze and you get into iron, it's like, yes, I feel good. I'm no longer bronze anymore. I mean, if you're silver and you get put down into iron, it's like, okay, that kind of feels bad, but at least I'm not bronze, is what you could think, right? I mean, and that's where most players are. That's why I think that's the best place, because that's the average place. That's where most people populate. So just take everybody from like bronze 1 to silver 4, put them in this new iron division, and just expand out, add another in the bronze tier, add another division, make 4 divisions there. And I think that would be great. That would be a feels good, because then there's lots of like flexibility there. You could also put it between silver and gold. That would add another layer to, try to get those season rewards or whatever. And I think that would be okay. But once again, I would put it in the highest population area, which is iron. Hell, I might even put 2 divisions down there. I might put iron and something else. So you go like bronze, iron, something else, so that like the top 75% of players have some meaningful progress that they can track. So that's cool. And then the other place where I would put something, though, I think 1 division between bronze and silver would have been good. Iron is fine. It adds extra distinction there, but I think it's going to be a feels bad for a lot of people. And then it's like, well, you're still in bronze. If you get out of iron, you're still in bronze. And so that's another thing that can feel like pretty bad, is it's like, well, I got out of the absolute worst, and now I'm in the meme. I've worked so hard to get out of bronze, or like iron, and now I'm just back in bronze, which feels like where I was before. And there's still all these memes around the internet about bronze. So yeah, I think that's awkward. But I think another one between platinum and diamond, and I think that's a really good spot because so many people get burned out in platinum. There's so many extra challenges in platinum. You have elo decay if you don't play enough. You have you don't get a free win in your series anymore, so you have to win like 2 out of 3 every single time. Even if you get demoted, you still have to win 2 out of 3 to move up. That's where macro really starts to matter a lot. It's not just enough to be a good player. You have to have a lot more discipline, self-control. And people play the game a lot in Platinum. People play in other divisions, but I think Platinum is probably one of the most played divisions out there. People just spam a lot of games in Platinum, and there's a lot of burnout. And people just start experimenting and trying different champs they don't know how to play. So there's a lot of problems in Platinum that make it, uniquely challenging. And also, Diamond 5, most people consider that, winning the game, pretty much. If you get to Diamond, most people are just like, all right, I'm done. I'm not going to be able to go to Masters. I just don't have the time commitment for that. I'm just not good enough for that. I got to Diamond. That's good enough. I'm going to go play something else, Or I'm just going to make a Smurf and, try to get another account to Diamond. Because there's so much burnout in Platinum, and it's just so hard to go from Diamond to Masters for the vast majority of the population. It's just not going to happen. So most people think, well, there's no point in even trying to go up because there's no way I'm reaching that next level. And so that's why I think that adding something between Platinum and Diamond would be great. It would give Platinum people something more to aspire to. So it's going to take you longer to get to Diamond. It'll keep you more interesting. And then Diamond will be more rewarding. You'll say, wow, I actually had to work through another division before I got all the way up to Diamond. And that'll be great. That'll feel, a lot better. And so that's where I would have put it. Now they put it between Master and Challenger. That's so few people that play that, though. How many people are in Masters? 500 or less? I don't know the exact number, but that's 500 or less out of, the millions of people that play. in North America and all these other regions around the world, I don't think you need to cater to those people. They already are committed. They play the game a lot. I don't know. Let me open the door here real quick, and we're pretty much done with this. To an extent, yes, you need to support your top level people because those are the content creators. Those are your pro players. You want to keep them happy, but at the same time, there's so few of them. And I think it's already fair enough, right? They have, scouting grounds if they get in a Challenger. They already have, their own little special zone when they get in a Masters and Challenger. They have their own little LP system with different kinds of rewards and restrictions and, all of that kind of stuff. And those people are already invested in playing the game a lot, I think. You don't just accidentally get to Masters or Challenger, right? Most of those people are content creators. I think they could do other reforms near the top. Maybe not let as many Smurfs in a Challenger. I don't know how they would regulate that. But, I don't know. I don't think it's worth it. I would have just put the division between Platinum and Diamond because those are people that are heavily committed, but they still are, reaching for certain goals or they've given up if it's the Diamond 5 people. So that just feels like a severe drop-off in how much you care about the game, from Platinum 1 to Diamond 5. It just feels like this huge, crossover from really caring and trying hard to get to Diamond, and then all of a sudden you get to Diamond 5, you're like, I just don't care anymore. I'm just going to play whatever, or I'm not going to play at all, and just go do something else. So I think that's a place where psychologically there needs to be, some more incentives in there. But overall, it's a good idea. More distinction is good. I just would have done it in those places that I mentioned. And then finally, they're doing more splits with more rewards. I think this is good. We don't know a lot of details about this yet, but ultimately, it's going to give people more of an incentive to play in the mid-season, so around June to August, which is historically the weakest time for League of Legends. So I think that's cool. And they're doing current borders, so as you're making your progress, it feels good because your border will currently get upgraded as you move through. So I think that's good, and just more rewards are always good. I mean, it's just intellectual property. They can throw people a couple more bones about things. Because, they might think, oh, well, we're giving away free stuff. It's no, you're keeping people invested in the game, so they're more likely to buy other stuff. When they quit playing from, May to August, they're not buying skins because they're not playing. So if you just give them a free skin, or, if they earn certain rewards, you give them a skin or something. I think have specifically said they're not going to give out a skin for that. But just give them something that's cool that keeps them playing. And then they could do something like these battle passes. I don't know if they're doing that yet or not, but that's been really popular in these other games. Like Fortnite, I don't know exactly what that entails, but just give them something where it's these constant goals they can work towards. The missions are kind of like that, but just little short-term goals more than just get this rank that people can do that would keep them invested and interested in the game. And they try to do more casual stuff with Odyssey was pretty cool, and they've got these other modes that they're trying out, but this is a step in the right direction. More rewards, more short-term goals for people to try to achieve to keep them interested in the game. So, yeah. I think overall that's solid. And we're already an hour 30, so I'm not going to go over more. As soon as the patch comes out, I will have a patch notes video, but I won't go super far into it. Overall, I think it's good moves. I think the biggest thing is nerfing bone plating super hard. And then removing Chrysalis, I think it's going to open up a lot more options. Shield Bash could be pretty interesting. We'll have to see how that goes. Trying to do a quick TLDR. Gensu's Rage Blade is getting nerfed in the dirt. As far as I can tell, that's awesome. That'll nerf Kaisa and Master Yi a lot. Open up some more diversity. I mean, we'll see. Maybe this is better than I think it is, but it seems like a pretty large nerf to me. And they've tried out a lot of this stuff, but reverted it. I'm also kind of confused because they said that 8.23 is the preseason patch, but now they're pushing all this stuff back to 8.24, which would be an additional 2 weeks. So it's hey, it's preseason, but wait a minute. We're not actually going to roll out the preseason stuff yet. I think even the tower stuff they pushed back to 8.24. Yeah. So what the hell is 8.23? If it's not towers and minions, and if it's not these different changes, if it's not Ornn, if it's not Sejuani, if it's not Galio, Like, what is it? I guess it's just a couple more light champion changes? I don't know. Either way, I like most of these things. They're looking pretty good, but we'll just see what the patch notes actually bring out, and then we'll talk about it more when that happens. So, thank you very much. Longer video than I intended. I'll have some timestamps in there for you. If you made it through the whole thing and you enjoy it, don't forget, like and subscribe. And I'll try to come out with more of these guides. Hopefully more brief guides. I'm going to try to aim for like 30 minutes on the guides, but I'll try to come out with these more often. So, anyways, thank you very much. Have a good day, and I'll see you next time.